Welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole if you're new, and I am back in the kitchen because I'm starting a new Sunday dinner series where I'm going to share with you the meal that I'm making that day, and you'll probably see it later on in the week. If you enjoy home cooking, budget shopping, and budget gifts, make sure that you're subscribed to my channel so that you don't miss any of my videos coming out. Now for today's Sunday dinner, I'm going to be doing a high protein version because we are at the start of the year and it's a nice reset for a lot of people. But I have been eating higher protein versions of recipes for about the past year and a half now, and it has really helped out my nutrition. So not every Sunday I'm going to be doing a higher protein version, but today I will, which I'm so excited for because I have not tried this yet. We're going to do a chicken pot pie. And for dessert, we are gonna do a high protein pumpkin cheesecake. Two recipes that I have not tried, but they are very simple to do. So let's just go ahead and get started. Well, today I'm wearing my husband's apron because this is the one that I have out of the laundry right now. So I do a lot of cooking at home normally. So I wanna do better about sharing what I'm making with you on this channel, since I've got a lot of great feedback from you all on my home cooking. So for today, I want to start with the dessert because that's gonna take time to bake and then chill. So first for this recipe, and I'll link both of these down below in the description if you want to try them, but I'm going to start off with my graham cracker crust. Now this recipe I'm actually doubling because it makes a very small portion. And I'm gonna double it to fit my full-size pie pan today. So the original recipe calls for 2 graham crackers. So I added 4. Now I just have my roller here. And I'm gonna crush these up, which I could put these in my food processor, but I didn't wanna break that out right now for 4 graham crackers. So I'm just gonna do this quickly. So I'm gonna add these to 4 tablespoons of melted butter. Now for my butter today, I'm actually going to use the I Can't Believe It's Not butter. Now, yes, I would rather use real butter, but I'm experimenting today because this is actually much lower calories than traditional butter because it's not full butter. So this is only 35 calories per serving. So we're just gonna experiment today and see how it goes, because I've been trying to work on lowering the calories and upping the protein in a lot of the meals I make without losing flavor. So that looks pretty good. Now I took 4 tablespoons of butter and I added it to my ceramic dish, put it in the microwave for about 30-40 seconds to get it melted. So I'm gonna bring my pie plate here. This is just a normal 9-inch pie plate. And I'm going to mix in my crumbs and my butter and start patting it down. I have already greased my pan with some of that same butter. So I'll pour in my crumbs. This will be a nice thin layer. I'm gonna add in my butter. We'll start with 3 tablespoons first, see how that goes. Yeah, I think the 3 tablespoons of butter is enough. I don't need the full 4, so we'll go ahead and save the rest of that. And I'm gonna start patting this down into my dish. Now this is gonna be quite a thin layer. You can always beef it up and add more, but I'm trying not to add, even though crust is my favorite part of pie, I'm trying to keep the calories lower by not having to add so much of it. So again, I've never made this recipe before, so it's gonna be a bit of an experiment for me, but if it comes out delicious, I'm gonna be so happy because my husband loves pumpkin and cheesecake. So I'm really hoping this is a winner and sort of a healthier alternative that we can have more often instead of just at the times where we want to indulge a bit more. All right, that looks good. So I have my oven already preheated to 350 degrees, and I'm gonna go ahead and add this in for about 10 minutes to bake. Okay, so we're gonna get started on our filling right now. To add protein into our cheesecake filling, we're gonna be adding cottage cheese and Greek yogurt. So to start off, we need 100 grams of vanilla Greek yogurt. If you don't already know, Greek yogurt has so much protein in it for very little calories. This Fage total 0% that I get per serving has only 90 calories, but 18 grams of protein, so that is huge. Now, I don't have the vanilla flavored yogurt, so I'm going to make it vanilla flavored on my own. So to double it, I'm gonna need 200 grams. And I have some vanilla flavored 0 calorie, 0 sugar syrup sweetener. And I'm gonna pour a little bit in, maybe just a splash or two, and turn that into vanilla flavored yogurt. I do this every single day at home because this yogurt is so protein rich. I add 0 calorie syrups to it to basically make it whatever flavor we want that day. And my son loves these yogurts. And so does my husband. He mixes in vanilla sweetener and chocolate chips in his. And it is such a great high protein, lower calorie sweet treat to have. All right, so that is nice and mixed. I gave it just a little bit of taste and tastes just like vanilla yogurt. So I'm gonna add that into my blender here to get our filling going. Next, I'm going to add 115 grams of cottage cheese. Again, cottage cheese, just like vanilla yogurt, something very high protein for low calorie. I'm using fat-free cottage cheese here. So actually not 115 grams because we are doubling, so 230 grams. So I'm gonna add that in straight to my blender as well. Next, we are gonna add pumpkin puree. Now, I got another one of my little nifty spatulas here. My husband's parents bought me these cute little sets of purple spatulas, my favorite color, for Christmas. And they come in handy so much. If you're watching, thank you again. I love them. So I'm taking this little can and scooping out 300 grams, I'm measuring as I'm doing this, of my pumpkin puree. All right, we are about there. And I'm also gonna add in 2 whole eggs. I've already cracked these to make sure we're not adding any shell. And do half a tablespoon of vanilla extract. This I'm just going to eyeball in there. And to add a big portion of protein, we are gonna do 31 grams of vanilla protein powder. If you watched my high protein freezer meal video recently, you saw that I'm using the Isopure vanilla flavored protein. So doubling it, I'm going to add 62 grams right in the lid here. And typically, I try not to use protein powder in a lot of my desserts, but I think this one will end up not affecting the dessert texture too much because we are blending everything together in our blender. I have used it in breads before and it tends to dry breads out. But when I mix it with pumpkin, like I did my protein pumpkin pancakes, it still comes out super moist using the protein powder. So I'm very excited on this, hoping that it turns out great. And then also, the recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of some monk fruit sweetener. So I'm gonna add 4 tablespoons. I'm not gonna use the monk fruit even though I do have it. Just because I already have this out, my vanilla 0 calorie syrup, I'm just gonna add this as my sweetener. And eyeball. And it's not in the original recipe, but I really think that I'm gonna add it anyway, just pumpkin pie spice, just to give us that real like, pumpkin pie kind of feeling. All right, I'm gonna get this blended up. All right, so I grabbed my pie crust out of the oven after 10 minutes. It smells really good. And I'm gonna take my blended up cheesecake mixture and pour this right in. All right, so we're gonna bake this for 25 to 30 minutes. in the oven. I'm gonna check it halfway through to see if I need to cover it, but we'll start off in the 350 degrees as is. All right, so now we're gonna get started on our chicken pot pie. Now what's really cool is this recipe has 38 grams of protein as is, but I'm gonna make a couple little tweaks to make it even lower calorie. So most of this will be done on the stove, but I wanna get ready chopping up my onion. Now it calls for, and this makes a full chicken pot pie, it calls for half an onion, but I have this shallot left over from my holiday meals that I never used. So I'm gonna go ahead and add in this shallot today, which I think will add some nice flavor. Two things that are gonna be adding a good, well, three, a good amount of protein to a traditional chicken pot pie, which will help to balance out some of the more calorie dense ingredients in this, because we will be using a puff pastry sheet on top for our crust. I love puff pastry sheets. Now the original recipe uses rotisserie chicken, which is great and very flavorful, but I'm gonna be using chicken tenders today, which are even slightly lower calorie and higher protein than even using just chicken breast. So earlier today, I've already boiled about 6 chicken tenders and shredded them up so that we have them prepped. And the other 2 ingredients we're going to be using to sort of amp up the protein is cottage cheese to help make it nice and creamy at the end. And instead of using regular chicken broth, we're going to use chicken bone broth, which I think will work very nicely. Okay, so we're gonna get this into the pan with our reserved light butter here. All right, so I added my butter, I'm gonna add in my shallots, and we're gonna let this saute for a bit. I'm also gonna add in my garlic. This recipe is 1 tablespoon of garlic minced, but I'm gonna add more, about 2 tablespoons, just because we love it. And I'm gonna keep stirring this until the onions are translucent. All right, this looks good. Now I wanna add in my peas and carrots. This is just a frozen 12-ounce bag. And I wanna get that mixed in. All right, so I have my stove on medium-low right now. I'm gonna go in with 2 cups of my chicken bone broth. Give that a stir. Next, I'm gonna go in with my seasonings. So I'm gonna do 1 teaspoon each. I'm just gonna eyeball. This is some rubbed sage, about a teaspoon in there, and about a teaspoon of some thyme. Oops, a little more went in, but that's totally fine. And I'm gonna eyeball a teaspoon of some salt. You can always add more. And we'll stir that in as well, and try and get this to a bit of a simmer. I'll turn up the heat just a bit. All right, so we're starting to get a bit of a simmer on here. I have 1/4 cup of flour, and I'm gonna start adding this in a little bit at a time. Now, technically, for this recipe, I was actually only supposed to add in 1 cup of the bone broth before the flour, but we'll see how it goes. I'm sure it'll be fine, but we can add more flour if we need to. So I'm just gonna start adding this in bit by bit. Yeah, I can already see it's working. And I'm still on about medium-low heat right now. I'm just gonna continue adding this and stirring. All right, this looks nice and thick. Smells good too. Now I'm gonna add in 2 cups of cottage cheese, and I went ahead and blended it to take out the lumps with just a little handheld blender. And I'm going to add this in. To get our filling nice and creamy, and give that a good mix. And I'm on low heat right now. Next, I'm gonna add in about 2 cups of our chicken tenders. Just like that. A stir. And once we get this well combined, I'm gonna give it a bit of a taste for seasoning. All right, I think that looks good. I'm gonna add some pepper. We like a lot of pepper. I also added a little more salt just because I didn't think that we were quite there yet on the flavor, but we should be good about now. Now I'm gonna go ahead and cut off the heat and get our pan ready. Now that I have my filling done, I'm gonna go ahead and take my puff pastry sheet. I've just had this thawing on the counter the whole time we've been cooking. You can put it on just like this if you want to and pierce it, but I'm gonna go ahead and do a bit of a lattice design on mine just to make it fancy for this Sunday. So I'm gonna cut this in thirds first because that's where the initial fold crease is, and then cut each of these into 3 strips. And now they're not gonna be exact, so I'm just taking my knife and eyeballing it because it doesn't need to be perfect. So we're gonna get 3 strips out of each one of these panels to total 9. After I'm done with this, I'm gonna go ahead and check on my pumpkin cheesecake. So I've had to put it in there longer than the original recipe time has said, and that's probably because I doubled the recipe, I'm assuming. So it's already been an extra 10 minutes in the oven, and I just quickly went ahead and added a foil cover on it because it is starting to get brown, which is fine, I don't mind, but I don't know how much longer I'm gonna leave it in there, maybe another 10 minutes or so because it's not firmed up yet. So I have all of my lattice panels done. We can move over to our dish. All right, so I'm just gonna start by adding my filling into my dish. It's very heavy. Little spillage, but totally fine. Make sure we get everything in, and we're just gonna smooth it out evenly into our pan. I'm using a regular 9x11 pan here. And we'll start adding our strips just like that. I already added in these strips, so I'm just going to start lifting and moving every other panel here. So they're not gonna fit exactly, but that's not a problem because this doesn't need to be perfect. This is just for us here at home. But I have 4 strips and I'm gonna kind of offset them since they don't reach the length that I need. So I'll just go over and under, just like that. Now that we have our lattice work done, I just need to add an egg wash on the top. Now for this egg wash, I'm going to use actually my egg substitute. You could just use a real egg, a real whole egg, but I'm using this because again, it's lower calorie for much higher protein. So I'll start with a little bit here and take my little brush. I'm just gonna add in a bit of my egg wash over each one of these strips, and hopefully we'll get some nice browning on here. All right. Now we're just gonna add this to a 400-degree oven for about 20 to 25 minutes until it's golden. I just want to show you really quick that we are taking out our cheesecake, our pumpkin cheesecake. It needs to be firm, and I think it's almost there, but I'm gonna go ahead and take it out anyway because it's been in there quite a while. So now it smells really good. So now we just need to take this out to cool, and then we're actually gonna let it chill in the refrigerator for just a couple hours. So we'll have this later tonight. All right, I just pulled my pot pie out of the oven. It took about 25 minutes to cook through. I noticed the puff pastry wasn't that browned, so I just went ahead and put it under the broiler for about 5 minutes, and it got nice and golden. So I'm gonna let this cool slightly before we cut into this. All right, everyone, that is it for this Sunday dinner. I'm so glad we kicked it off with a comfort meal because it is still quite cold here in Vegas. And we're able to execute on a bit of a more nutritious meal. So after I let my chicken pot pie cool a bit, we went ahead and dished this up. And I'm telling you, for a lower calorie and higher protein version of chicken pot pie, This recipe was great. I would love to try it next time with the rotisserie chicken because that's always delicious too. But as is, I love having the puff pastry not taken away from my chicken pot pie. You still get enough of it in your serving to get those nice flaky vibes over your rich chicken filling. I typically do add a little of white wine to the roux in my chicken pot pie to add a bit more flavor. So I might even do that next time. But overall, it was a really great meal. And for our dessert, our high protein pumpkin cheesecake was actually so good. The flavor was really good. Next time, I might even just bake it a tad longer. This was a bit of a trial because I did double the recipe this time. But for us, the texture was fine after we chilled it. I went ahead and sliced this up and served it with a nice dollop of zero sugar Cool Whip that I use that is lower in calorie but still tastes great because that is a must for us on our pumpkin pies. So if you enjoyed this one, please make sure you give this video a like because it would really help out my channel. If you want to stick around for more of my Sunday dinners in the future, make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of my home cooking. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.